All right, here we go. I'm going to put this on mute here. All right, good morning, everybody. Well, good afternoon for some. This is John Barrows with Make It Happen Monday, and I am super excited. This is probably my most excited Make It Happen Monday that I've done, episode number 30 right now. It's Evolve or Die, and it's a big announcement today on a huge shift that I'm making in my business. And I wanted to give you some context first before we make the intro here, but for most of you who have been following me, I built this business, or I kind of fell into this business, if you will. I started a first company and then joined a training company. They screwed it up, and I was very opportunistic in how I took this business over. And one of the things, for me, being 40 years old, a lot of my goals in life have adjusted, obviously, since I've had a kid and all this different stuff. And for me, it was, build a lifestyle company. I'm done with the IPO stuff. I'm done with the, sell it off and make millions thing. I have the house I want. I have the car, the family, everything's good for me. And so now it's really just a lifestyle. And so for years, I've been trying to figure out how to craft that lifestyle. And a lot of it obviously has to do with income, but it also has to do with spending time with my family. That's a huge priority for me these days. And so I've talked about how to drive recurring revenue so I can get off of an airplane and not have to fly around as much. And I've invested a lot of different things over the years. For instance, I've invested in this whole online stuff that I've been doing, trying to drive individual end users to sign up for my portal so I can create that recurring revenue. And I've realized over the years that first of all, I've been focusing on the wrong things. I was focusing on recurring revenue when I should have been focused on recurring value. So that's how I've shifted my mindset over the years. And the online stuff has been fantastic, but it's also driven a lot more on-site, because as the exposure gets out there, more people want me to show on-site as well. So I've been toying around with different business models and plans, and hopefully as you've been following me, you're not just getting nuggets and tips and ideas on how to sell better, but also how to build a business and how to scale your organization, how to just think of things a little bit differently. That's one of the big things I'm trying to get out there as well. Because I get a lot of people who ask, John, I want to start my own company, or I want to go off and be a consultant. What should I do? And so with that, I've been searching, and I've been keep evolving. And I always say evolve or die, right? If you're not evolving, you're dying. But I've always fought to bring somebody on board, right? Because I always looked at this is a tough industry to bring anybody on board, because IP is something that is hard to protect in a lot of ways in sales training, because if you make a few shifts to it, then all of a sudden somebody can steal it and you're in a legal battle, and that's the last thing I want. So I've always looked at, well, first of all, I got to hire somebody who I trust. Second of all, I got to make sure the amount of time that I invest in this person isn't going to be wasted. So in 6 months, they're going to bounce off and do something else. And I'm always looking for just a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario, not just a 1 + 1 = 2. Because I'm not trying to scale a huge organization here. I'm trying to build a lifestyle, but also do it the right way, and also continue to add value to the community and everybody who's watching. And again, I always sincerely appreciate your eyeballs and your attention on this stuff. So with that, I started to identify some things that I needed to do as an organization to get myself to that next level, and realize that if I don't, I'm going to become a dinosaur real quick. A lot of you have heard my trainings. I always rail on that trainer. I never wanted to be a trainer, because I've always said, most trainers I had come across up until, I started becoming a trainer were either failed sales professionals or professional presenters. And I didn't want to be that guy, right? I didn't want to be the guy who stood up, hey, 20 years ago when I was selling, or just be completely irrelevant to the audience. But I see, now that I'm in this business, I've been in it for a while, I can see that easily happening to myself, because a lot of my stuff comes through referrals. Now, I still prospect just to make sure this stuff still works, but I could probably kick back right now for the next 5 years and just live off referrals and live a pretty nice life. But that doesn't do me any favors, and that doesn't do my audience any favors. So I wanted somebody that I could bring on board, A, that I could trust, B, that had a brand that would do 1 + 1 = 3, and C, would be somebody that would help me evolve this content and stay relevant to the audience. Because a huge part of my audience is, kids between the age of 22 and 26 years old, give or take, SDR, BDRs, making tons of cold calls. And the older I get and the further away from it I get from making those 400 dials I used to make and blasting out a ton of emails, the less relevant I become to my audience. And that's the last thing that I want to do, is be one of those guys. So with today, I'm announcing that I am hiring somebody that I've been following for a little while now. He hit my radar about 1.5 years ago with some of the social stuff that he was doing and his brand building. And I think he really embodies everything that I train and talk to reps about, which is, being focused on your own personal brand, making sure that you're getting yourself out there, because I think your brand, your personal brand, is what's going to carry you through the rest of your career and prevent us from getting replaced by robots. And so this individual who I have brought on board, I'm super excited to announce, and I would love to bring him on with us as we speak. Morgan, you want to come on board and say hi to everybody?
What's going on, everybody?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good.
So everybody, all my audience who's watching, I want to introduce you to Morgan Ingram. If you don't know him already, you should. And with that, Morgan, why don't you give everybody just a little background of where you're coming from, and we'll talk about that first, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be doing moving forward. But why don't you give everybody that background of how you got to where you are right now, and then we'll talk about what we're going to be doing moving forward. All right?
Yep, definitely. So very quick background on me. I graduated from University of Georgia in 2015. Got the Keep Dollin shirt on. There it is. But yeah, graduated from university in 2015. Decided, hey, I need to get into tech. I need to learn more about it. So I knew the only way to get in there was through sales. And so actually called the director of sales, Tony, at the time, to get the SDR position, became an SDR, did the SDR role for a year, then got promoted to SDR manager a year after, where I was leading a team of 13 reps at a company called Terminus out of Atlanta, Georgia, startup. So during that time, did a lot of stuff with building content. SDR Chronicles is what mostly people know me for, but videos around that, blog posts around that, and articles around that. So that's my background, and just super excited for this opportunity.
Yeah, and that's what, and I will tell everybody here, I've used Morgan as an example in my trainings as somebody who I feel has done it right? So Morgan, we've talked about this, where started paying attention to you. Who's the one, and I hopefully he's listening here, but who's the one who kind of pushed you in the direction to start getting out there on video and stuff like that?
Well, it's two people. Okay. So two people, when I entered in my career, like in tech, these are two people that it was a double punch. So Ralph Barcy, that's the first and foremost person that I read that article, and it talked about an SDR should create a YouTube channel. And that's when I was like, I just felt like I had to do it. It's just something in the article, like, this is it. I found the article. And then I saw Gary Vaynerchuk, which don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's everywhere. So if you don't know who it is, just go look him up. He's very easy to find. but he literally had this speech, and I still remember it to this day. He said, hey, look, like, somebody in this room needs to create a personal brand around sales. And he said, there's going to be 30 of you who actually start. There's going to be 15 of you who actually execute on it and stay consistent for about 3-4 months. And he said, only one of you is actually going to be able to stay consistent throughout your entire career and actually do some type of successful thing. And so, yeah, I mean, it was true, because I took that to heart, and I saw it as this is the time for me to step up, and really all the stuff that I've been talking about, it's time for me to take action.
Awesome, man. And I think that's, that put you on that track, and then you started doing videos, right? And I will say the one that got my attention is when you got promoted to be the SDR manager. And you put out a post of I think it was what you learned over the year or something like that. And it included a lot of your core values. And a lot of those core values that you put out there align pretty directly with my core values. I mean, for those of you who are watching this video, hopefully you've seen I have these 12 personal guidelines to success. And, and they talk about always ask for feedback, confidence overcomes most shortcomings except for an ego, find your passion or find something else to do. And when you talked about your experience over the years, one of the things that really struck me was, I think a lot of people throw that, thought leader thing label out there a little bit too frequently. Yeah, and it's actually, we've joked about this. As soon as you call yourself a thought leader, you ain't a thought leader, right? And I think it makes you even uncomfortable for people to consider you a thought leader, even though some people do, right? Talk to me a little bit about your thought process on that, on the thought leadership, and how people see you versus how you see yourself and what you're doing here.
Yeah, so it actually stems back from a book. So if you have followed me, John even knows this, I read a ton of books. It's something that is my source of information. It's how I have the edge on a lot of things that I talk about and the stuff that I do. So in a book, I read this. It said, as humans, we only reach to 5 to 10% of our true potential. So I took that as in okay, that means I need to go all out, because if I could reach at least like the high degree of potential as humans, then obviously there's a lot I can accomplish, and there's a lot of people I can help out by accomplishing that. So I took that to heart. And so the value and the stuff that I talk about is stuff that I just learned in my life and stuff that I've just learned and want to give out to people. And I don't really see myself as a thought leader, because I just think that's something that's kind of absurd, because I'm just a student of the game, and I'm just giving people nuggets and advice and gems that I've learned along the way. Now, if people take that and they want to see me as a thought leader, that's cool. But I always deflect to everybody who says I'm a thought leader, because I just don't understand like where that even comes from or how I even got this that perception. I'm just out really just being me and giving out content and giving out just my life on what I've learned so far.
I love it, man. And I think just going on that note of nuggets and tips, you know, one of the things I always talk about, reps, everybody's always concerned about how do I get started, right? And creating content. I'm not good on video, or I'm not good on this. It's like, look, you don't have to be the creator of content. All you have to do is be the curator of content. And going back to Gary Vee, a huge thing that I took from him is context over content, right? Everybody else is putting content out there. What we need to be doing, and how you can grow your brand and how you've done it really effectively, in my opinion, is by putting your context around that content. So for instance, what's the book series? I keep forgetting the name. What's the book series that you're doing right now?
Oh, the Ingram Iliad.
Yeah, the Ingram Iliad. And for everybody to let you know, like Morgan, his brain works differently than mine. Like I'm not much of a reader. I'm more of like a blog post guy and a little snippet. Morgan, how many books did you read again last year?
270.
Yeah. Like I haven't read 270 books in my life, by the way. but the idea of you, and what's the concept, right? You read the book, apply it, and then go show your nuggets, like.
Right, yeah. So I'll just take a book, like anything right here. Like I'll just grab, like this is Anthony's book right here. So like the Lost Art of Closing. Like I'll read this book, and then I have like there's like notes in here, and I'll take notes, and I'll be like, all right, here are the 3 things that like highlights. Like this is what you need to get out of this book, and then I also say like here's a 1 takeaway that I got from this book that I actually use in real life. The problem is that when most people hate books is because they read it for the motivation and not for the motivating factor of you actually doing something and taking action. People just like getting excited and it's a good feeling. But like what I've realized is that like if you actually do the stuff that it says in the book, like the game's just going to change for you. And then that's what I realized after I actually started acting upon the stuff it said in a book. My life started changing very drastically.
Yeah, and actually, there's a question that came up in the questions here. Somebody asked, "How do you read almost a book a day?" Is it enlighten us somehow?
I mean, that's no, seriously. Like I tell people all the time, like I didn't have a life. Like I literally in 2016, I came in that year and I said that like I'm gonna be so locked in that I'm gonna fundamentally change my mindset and who I am as a person, because I knew that year was going to be the year that I could actually make something happen instead of just talking about it. So I tell people this all the time. Like I didn't go out except for 3 times: my best friend's birthday, my birthday, and then my other friend's birthday. I only went out 3 times. I only went on 1 date. So people are like, "Oh, did you do?" I only went on 1 date. It was literally like I literally had guys. I had no life. I literally I woke up early in the morning. I read. I went to work. And then I came back home and read and then made content. And that was like my life for the entire year. But I knew if I made that big of a sacrifice for a year, I knew that it would all come back into play at the end of the day. Like, because like at the end of the day, like the video games will still be here. I didn't play any video games either. No video games, no TV. I took TV. Like I literally took everything out. Like I didn't have any fun. Like, but the thing is like, the women will always be there. People will always be there for you. Like you're saying, like your friends will be there. Like that was something I was intentional about this year. Friends and family, like reading up on all those relationships. But I knew like the amount of opportunity I had coming into Terminus and coming into that position and starting a YouTube channel that no one else was doing and really putting out content. I knew that was just a open gap window that I couldn't just lethargically not think about. And the reason I chose 300 books to read. I didn't get there because it just, at the end of the day, it was like there was just so much happening, but it's just a lot. But because I read that many books, I've just gathered a lot of knowledge. And I'm able to have certain conversations that most people aren't able to have. And also I figured out, hey, 50 to 60 books a CEO reads every single year. If I can times that by 6 or times by 4, then I should be able to gain enough knowledge for the next 4 years where I'm only focusing on executing and taking action and not having to read a book every single day. So that was kind of like my preface on that. I just took that year to be all in.
Love it. And that kind of aligns with two things. One is, one of my first guiding principles, which is earn everything, right? Everybody always asks me, being 41 years old and being pretty, doing all right in business here, John, what's the secret to success? I'm like, shit, ain't no secret. It's just working your ass off.
Right.
And it really is. I mean, I always say I'm not that smart. I can't read that fast, but I learn through experiences and stuff like that. And I also find shortcuts. So for instance, there's tons of summaries of books, so not like the Cliff Notes version, but there's tons of resources out there where you can actually get a book on one page, and exactly what you're doing with the Iliads, which is, here's the 3 takeaways from it. And I remember I did that early in my career for the exact reason that you just brought up, which is, when I was pretty young in sales with my first IT services company. I remember going into a meeting with a CEO, and my CTO was with me. We were both young. We were both like 25.
Yeah.
But the whole, I was the relationship guy and he was the IT guy, right? And so the whole idea was I was going to develop the rapport and relationship, hand it over to the IT guy to talk tech, and then pull it back. But I remember walking into this one meeting, and this is right around when Freakonomics had just come out, right?
Yeah.
And I remember we walked in, and my CTO looked at the CEO's bookshelf, and he said, "Oh, I see you got Freakonomics out there, right?" And he's like, "Have you read it yet?" And the CEO was like, "Yeah." And they literally went off on like a 20 to 30-minute discussion about Freakonomics and the impact and what they thought about it. And you could legit feel the rapport being built between them. And
Right.
I'm sitting there on the sidelines being like, yeah, Freakonomics, that's a pretty funny name for a book. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like an idiot. And so as soon as that registered for me about what do CEOs read, I went out there and I got some of these book summaries of, all right, what are the top 25 books that CEOs read? And what are the key takeaways from each one of them? Just so, if nothing else, so I could strike up better conversation and have an opinion or a question that showed some insight that would able to have more than a speeds and feeds and bits and bytes conversation with executives. Yeah. Right? And I'm sure that's translating a lot into the conversations you're having, right?
Yeah, 100%. It translates a lot.
Yeah. So just again in the realm of tips and nuggets and ideas, you don't have to be able to read as much as Morgan. I mean, I think you figured out the speed reading thing too pretty quick, right?
Yeah, I figured that out too. I just YouTubed and figured it out, and then I read a couple books on it, and then I did a couple stuff on it as well.
Okay, so you actually taught yourself how to speed read.
Right. So yeah. So this is actually a really interesting one, and most people think this is absolutely insane, but like this is really actually how it works. So I always say, people, when you watch a movie, do you ever really pause the movie? Right.
Yeah, most people don't. I mean, unless they're going to the bathroom or something.
Yeah, unless you go to the bathroom, right? Yeah. But most people don't. You watch the movie all the way through. Even if you're confused, you're like, I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I realized. So there was a story about a guy who was homeless, did not know how to read that well. His reading level was not good. And he went in the library every single day because someone gave him a library card and he's homeless. He was trying to figure it out. So he kept coming to the library. He kept reading. And over time, he realized that the fastest way to read is if you treat books as a movie. So you basically just read it through as if you don't stop at all and you just keep reading. And you process that information. And then by the time that you realize that you can read it like a movie, you read books faster and you process information faster to save you time. So basically, I took that concept and then I added some speed reading components to it. And I realized, okay, like this is the best way to read, because my thing is that, like, I mean, after you read a certain amount of books, it's kind of the same message. So what I'm trying to do is gather stories, gather things that I can actually use and apply in my life. And so that's kind of how I taught myself. I use those two concepts, the speed reading concept that I learned, and also the movie concept, to read books at a very fast rate.
Love it, man. That's awesome. All right, cool. So I'm going to share a little bit about what I'm fired up for, and one of the main reasons I'm excited to bring you on board here. And then I'd love to flip it over to you just to get your thoughts and share with the people what you're fired up about. But for me, and I said this in the intro, this is an industry where you get old real fast, and I don't really consider myself old. I'm 41, so I'm still trying to stay as up to date as I can on all the cool shit. But I could easily see, as far as content is concerned, if you're out of the game, not selling, you start to get stale pretty quick, especially with all the technology and everything else. So one of the things for me, I'm not making I used to make 400 dials a week. I used to send out, thousands of emails and do that stuff. I still do prospect, but I'm not in the thick of it anymore. So one of the things I'm having, just for everybody else out there, Morgan, he's going to be actually applying the training, the filling the funnel training, and using sales loft and contact strategies and all that other stuff to really, first of all, A, make sure this stuff still works. B, optimize what we're doing so we can bring better insights to the marketplace and better structure. And also bring feedback to say, okay, you know, this is working, this isn't, here's something new, we should probably add to the training so as we're going to evolve it. So outside of him just out training for me and getting out on the road so I can get off a little bit, that feedback loop and the application, hardcore application of this training, I'm super excited for, because I really do think that's going to take us to the next level as a business and keep us ahead of the curve so we can, just like you said earlier, you know, read a book, apply the concept, share some nuggets to stay one step ahead of what's going on out there to hopefully educate everybody else, right? So those are some of the things I'm super excited, and also just to have somebody to bounce some like real ideas around. I have a lot of colleagues who I can bounce ideas around with, but you know, at the end of the day, they're not as invested, obviously, as you now are. So that's what I'm hyped up about. I'm hyped up about the future. I'm hyped up about all this online stuff that we're doing. Share with the audience why you made this switch, because you were pretty comfortable over Terminus. You had a good job. You had a manager job. You had 13 people. You was a pretty cool company that looks like they're about to pop in a pretty active field, account-based marketing. So A, why did you decide to make the switch and come on board with me? And B, what gets you hyped up about what's in front of you?
Yeah, definitely in a good position. They're at Terminus, you know, still other people, still a great place overall. Yeah. We're gonna kill it. They're gonna do awesome. So for me, it has to align with my goals. I just feel like if you're gonna say you're gonna do these things and you want to create this impact, like the actions that you take and the goals and the things that you set yourself in progress, it has to align. So one of the real reasons, you know, I wanted to link up with John is because I feel like I have a lot to learn and John can give that to me, just a lot of resources and a lot of just value that I know that I have to have on that kind of that one-to-one basis. And I feel like John brings that, especially scaling up and building a small business. That's like really crucial. I want to be able to build something of my own at one day. And also just, you know, traveling, like there's a lot of stuff in just traveling I've learned that I'm just like, okay, what? Like, I didn't even know that's a thing I need to watch out for. Yeah. And also another thing is just impacting people. Like that's something that I'm really, really big about. And this allows me to do it on a larger scale than what I was currently doing it at. And you guys all know that's kind of what I'm about. If you know me, I'm just about impacting people, motivating them to get to the next level. And that's the goal that I want. I want to be able to be the best of all time at that. So that's why I'm also linking up. But I think another thing, and I know John has touched on this with me, is like I want to make sure that people understand how to do sales correctly and think about it in a psychological level, and also think about like your mindset of how you actually need to get there. I think a lot of people don't really think about that when they get into sales. And I feel like there just really isn't, to be real, there's not enough guidance and there's not enough people out there helping people understand something when they're coming into that new role in sales development, you know, kind of where my main focus will be at for the time being, because, you know, I was super fortunate to have an incredible boss that came from sales development and literally taught me how to do it. There's just not a lot of bosses and there's not a lot of leaders that actually have that experience, just straight point. And also there's not a lot of people that are helping people that are millennials and are coming up in the workplace and understanding where they're coming from. And that's kind of what I'm excited about, is to give people that torch that kind of I got. And I want to be able to do that on a massive scale. And I know that John and I will be able to do that.
Love it, man. Yeah, and that's the fun part about this, because we're getting a article published here soon on Harvard Business Review, and it's kind of the whole, you know, we both got a lot to learn from each other. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think my generation's having a hard time connecting with your generation because, and I think Richard Harris said this the best, actually, you know, a lot of it comes from jealousy. There's some stuff that I could probably point my finger at that, you need to do this better than that. But a lot of it comes from jealousy, in the sense that there's more opportunity out there for the younger generation, whereas my generation kind of had to quote unquote earn it a little bit more, put their head down and not be given things, not allowed to skip a few steps, where, you know, I think there's plenty of opportunities to skip a few steps at this point, and you're a perfect example of that. I mean, when I would talk to people in my trainings about the power of the personal brand and why that's so important, I would bring you up and I would say, look, I guarantee you that Morgan is not going to follow the typical SDR, BDR, AE, SMB, mid-market, enterprise track. I guarantee you that kid's going to skip a few steps. And this was even before I knew I was going to hire you. You know what I mean? So to me, that's why I'm excited, is because, you know, hopefully we can help reps be able to skip a few steps and do sales right. You know, you nailed it. I mean, our guiding light here is sales done right. You know,
Yeah.
I went to that Gary V 4D session, and one of the things they said is really understand the why. Why are you doing what you do? And for me, it really boiled down to sales done right, because I fundamentally believe that when sales done right, sales is the greatest profession in the world when done right. It's the worst when done wrong. And so my hope is that we can work together here, so I can learn from you, you can learn from me, and we can help other people do sales the right way, because this profession opens up such a world of opportunities for people to dictate their own path and do what they want to do in life, which I think is really important. So
Yeah, 100%.
love it, man. Cool. Well, we have a couple minutes left here. I wanted to always, with the premise here, I'm going to do a little promo at the end, but with the premise here of everything that you and I do moving forward is going to be focused on adding value, right? So nuggets, tips, that type of stuff. Every video, every blog post, all of it. Hopefully you've already gotten a couple of nuggets out of this that we've talked about here, but I'm going to share my 3 favorite nuggets out of all my trainings and all the stuff I do, very tactical things. I'd love to flip it back over to you on what your 3 favorite things are. And then I'm going to do a quick little promo of what's coming up for us next week at Dreamforce, and then we'll get out of here. So my favorite nuggets are, start every single phone call off with the phrase, the reason for my call is, because that gets rid of touching base and checking in, and it keeps you purposeful, and it helps you stay focused. So that's 1, the reason for my call. 2 is summary emails. So after every single conversation you have with somebody, make sure you summarize it. Don't write a book. It's not a chance for you to reiterate your value proposition. It's purely to confirm what you heard from them, and then get them to say, yes, John, that's accurate, because now you have it documented and you can hold them accountable. My 3rd favorite nugget is send a shared agenda to confirm and control meetings. So if you and I have a meeting coming up tomorrow, I'm going to send you an agenda today. I'm going to send you an email today saying, hey, I'm looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. Here's 3 things I want to make sure that we cover. What else do you want to make sure that we cover? If they email you back, you got a great meeting. If not, you still use it to guide the conversation. So those are my 3 favorite nuggets out of all the stuff that I train. What are some of the things what are some knowledge that you can drop on the crowd that they can walk out away from today and do?
Yeah, so number 1 is if you don't schedule your life, then your life will schedule you. So this one is like really big for me, because when I first started as an SDR, in my head, I told myself, oh yeah, these are things I need to do. I did them, but I was not as intentional about them. I would be prospecting, I'd be on a call, and I'd be crafting an email. It's like, that's not really going to be beneficial at the end of the day. Like it gets it done, but it doesn't get it on an overperforming level where you're just like, you're killing it. So what I realized is that I had to literally go to my calendar and segment activities. So I did the same thing every single day, had an hour block for calls, hour block for prospecting, like 2-hour blocks for doing this, 2-hour blocks for doing that. And so I realized that when you actually have a schedule in your life, yeah, it may be boring, it may not be exciting, it's not really that exciting, but the results you get from actually scheduling your life is exciting, which is why you have to do it. So that's my piece of advice for anybody who's like, I'm struggling. And I always ask them, like, do you even have a schedule that you're coming into work every single day? It's the reason why, if you watch Zuckerberg, he wears the same gray t-shirt every single day. And I was like, yo, why is he wearing this gray t-shirt every single day? But what I realized is that he says that because it allows him to be more proficient in his time. So he doesn't have to wait around and be like, yo, what am I going to wear today? He just grabs a great t-shirt and he goes.
Okay.
It's the same thing in your sales. People come into work and they mess around for 2 hours and realize, like, wait, I didn't have any time. It's because you didn't have a schedule that you were aligning yourself to. So that's number 1. Number 2, I would have to say this is like really important, is that you have to take advantage of the resources around you. And so what that really means is that, like, internally in your company, there are people who are willing to help you, but they're not going to just come to your aid because you're just sitting next to them. You have to reach out to your boss, your colleague, whoever the top performer is, CEO, CMO, depends on what organization that you're in. I found that was the most beneficial thing to my career, because I learned so much about, like, everything, around me. And I knew more about the product and our solution than most people, because I just sat down and had a 30-minute conversation with someone like in engineering, which most people don't think about, but it's like, you got to know, like, what's going on. You're not going to be a good consultative salesperson if you don't know that. So that's something that I learned in my SDR role really quick.
Real quick to add on to that, for those of you out here listening, gatekeepers, here's a perfect example of what Morgan's talking about. If you're having struggle getting through gatekeepers, you all have a gatekeeper at your office. Go take the gatekeeper out for lunch. Ask him or her some questions about what gets through and what doesn't. You know, you all have a CFO at your company. If you want to learn how to have a conversation with a CFO, go ask your CFO for 15 minutes of their time and just ask them some questions. The insight you gain from that is invaluable. So I love it. What's your third one?
Yeah. Third one is and you talk about A/B testing. I think that was the most, I think that's the most beneficial thing that you can do. And it's not only with sales, but it's just really in life. Like when I started creating content, I A/B test to be like, okay, like this is good and this is garbage. Like it just doesn't work. Like there's some YouTube series and there's some videos that I've created that are just not good. Yep. But you know, it is what it is. I had to figure out what was best for me. I think with sales calls, like for gatekeepers, like I approach things differently. So when I say, hey, like I'm just really nice, like overall, I'm just like, hey, what's going on? Like I try to be their best friend. And so like, cause they always get like roasted. So I just try to be nice. And so I say, hey, can you connect me to, you know, Barry Sanders, right? And so when I get through, I say, hey, wait, but just in case if I get disconnected, like, can I get the direct line or the extension number? And 8 times out of 10, normally I get the direct line or the extension number. And that's something that I A/B tested over time. I just didn't come up with that. So it's just a lot of things. I think emails, social, there's a lot of things that I learned, but I A/B tested to figure out what is actually the percentage of stuff that I should be focused on, and like what's the percentage of stuff that I should not be focused on. So those are kind of my 3 nuggets of value.
Is that where this came from? Keep dialing.
Keep dialing. Literally, I just said it, and then I realized like that actually makes a lot of sense. And it obviously it has to do with the phone. Like it doesn't mean that like keep dialing on the phone, obviously, but it really means like be persistent. I feel like you got to keep plugging away, and it really kind of ties things up here because like 2 years ago, like you know, I was making content and making videos like in my car, and I was just like I was just like saying stuff, and like it wasn't really popping. Like nobody knew, no one really cared what I was saying, but I kept plugging away because I wanted to understand like how do I connect with people, how do I create community, and then like how do I get success. So the keep dialing is just like keep being persistent because like you're going to eventually get it and it's going to click. And a lot of things in my life have clicked for me now because I've been just turning the wheel on it. So
yep, I love it, man. And that's where mine make it happen, right? That's where this came from was just like I said, that question of people asking me, you know, what's success? It's literally going out and making it happen. And you said that video where Gary Vee was like, you know, 30 people do it, 15 people, 1 will be consistent with it, right? That's just making it happen. And to your point, keep dialing. So there's some synergies there, which I love. And by the way, for everybody out there, we do have this gear up on the J Barrows store. So if you want Morgan's keep dialing shirt, by all means, go up and get it. We'll put it in the comments section. Also my stuff, and most of that profit, by the way, goes to charity. The other thing I want to talk about is next week. So I am super hyped for next week because next week is Dreamforce, which is with Salesforce being my biggest customer. This is the kind of the event of the year. Most of our customers are going to be there. And so a couple of things to promo here. One is on Monday, for those of you going to be out there at Dreamforce, I'm going to be speaking at the Sales Summit for Quotable. And me, Trish Bertuzzi, and Doug Landis, who are 2 just incredible friends of mine and colleagues, we're going to be talking about the role of artificial intelligence in sales and what we should be paying attention. So that should be super fun. I would love it if you all just showed up there. And then also on Thursday, it's Morgan's birthday. So
my birthday.
Yeah, and so we're going to be having a little birthday party for Morgan, a meet and greet and a Q&A session where Morgan and I will be taking any questions that you have about sales, business, life, whatever it is. And it's going to be at the Sales Hacker Dreamforce Lounge. So again, we'll put all the content, the links in the chat field here. But follow me and Morgan on let's see, Snapchat, Instagram, all those things, because we're going to be pretty heavy on that, telling our story as we go through this process, because that to me is also what I think is pretty interesting here is we're going to be snapping and we're going to be Instagram and stories about, hey, what's going on? What's your perspective from a millennial standpoint and getting into the business? What's my perspective as a Gen Xer, you know, kind of navigating through this business? I think that should be pretty interesting for the audience to pay attention to figure out how we're going to be working together. Because this also, just for everybody else out there, this is also, Morgan isn't, like I work out of my house, as you can see here. Morgan's going to be working out of his house. He's down in Atlanta. I'm up in Boston. So in addition to the management component of this and the different generations, this is also a remote workforce here. So I know these are a lot of the challenges that some clients are facing today, and hopefully you all can learn something from our story. So with that, Morgan, any last parting words for this Make It Happen Monday, which I think is my favorite one so far, and what's to come, and you know, what should people be paying attention to?
Yeah, my lasting words is get after it. I mean, I think that's the cultivating things story here. I think a lot of people, you know, are waiting around to go do something, and I'm just telling you to go after it and go do it. 'Cause that's what we're going to be doing. There's going to be a lot of things that we're going to learn along the way together. I already know, like, there's going to be some stuff that we like just disagree on. I'm going to be like, I don't even know why you're saying that. And you already know because you don't have Gmail, so like we're already beefing already.
Yep. It's a Microsoft world, my friend. Like, I know it's a Google world, so that's part of. We actually did this board for everybody who's paying attention. We did this board of differences between us, right? And it's Google Docs, and I'm a Word doc. It's Outlook and Gmail. It's Mac and PC. So there's it's Patriots and Falcons. Yeah. And I think I got the upper hand on you on that one, by the way.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that one now.
Cool. We'll see what happens at the end of the season. But anyways, we're gonna wrap things up here. Again, everybody, we're gonna put stuff in the link section here on the Facebook Live session. For those of you listening to this podcast, we'll make sure you get the information as well. All right. So thank you all very much for listening and paying attention. Hopefully you're going to enjoy this journey that Morgan and I are going to be on together, and make it happen. Morgan, you want to sign out?
Hey guys, keep dialing, keep going. We'll see you guys soon.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
See ya.
Right. Stop. All right, end meeting. There we go.